Welcome to another episode of Let's Parley, where we are here to encourage you to bet on yourself and pursue all that life has in store for you. Today I'm going to talk about just some recent things that I've done to get back into my flow personally, and hopefully it'll help you get through any sort of challenges or out of any funk that you may have been in, whether it be currently or in the past or ones that are going to come up in the future. So without further ado, let's parlay. What's going on, family? Appreciate y'all tuning in again. This is episode 20. This is crazy to think that I've been doing this. I've done this 20 times already. So yeah, just appreciate everybody for tuning in, whether you're driving in your car, listening via audio, or if you sitting down and actually watching my behind talk to you. I appreciate it either way. I am currently dealing with like a little bit of symptoms. Like I feel some strange, I don't know, like tingling sensation, so anyway, if I sound any different, hopefully I don't, but just want to give you a heads up about that. There seems to be a lot of stuff going around, like a lot of stuff going around in general, just people getting either like temporary colds or, COVID, flu, whatever. And 'tis the season, right? Like the temperatures are changing. We are pretty much in the midst of fall, if that hasn't officially happened yet, but it's definitely getting colder, even down here in Texas. So anyway, just wanted to give you a heads up about that. But as I mentioned already, I really wanted to share some things that have been working pretty well for me and that I've decided to do, as of this week, really, and to commit myself to, just because I had been feeling just a little bit out of my flow for quite some time. And, when those things happen, you really got to stop and assess what's working, what's not working, and take some action and make some changes. So I want to share with you what's been my strategy going into that. And hopefully it's helpful for yourself. So the first thing that I personally realized was I had a lot of noise going on in my life, like a lot of inputs of information and things that I just didn't feel like were really serving me. The main thing that I think everybody can probably resonate with is social media. That for me it's just so easy to doom scroll, and it's so easy to consume reels and your feed, because it is just designed to make it attention grabbing, and the algorithm knows you well enough to know how long you stay on certain types of posts. And even when the posts are good, even when they're things that like are faith-based, like I've come a long way, y'all. Okay, my feed and the stuff that used to come up on my Instagram was very ungodly. Okay, I was definitely a red flag at some point in my life. Okay, I just want to openly admit that. However, I have, that's changed obviously with what I prioritize and what I want to receive more information on. So my feed nowadays can consist of, a lot of faith-based content, some news, which I try not to get too much into that, sports, right? So it's a lot more wholesome in general. However, it's still just a lot, and it can be very easy to just sit there and spend a lot of time doing it, or for it to just even take me off task when I'm working on something. And my personal struggle with that is that I market my services, I market my business through social media. So it's really hard for me to not use it and just to go away from it for a while. I've had periods where I have done that, but it can be kind of difficult because, that is the way that you are, generating leads and, introducing yourself to clients and new clients. So that's been something that I've looked to, sort of distance myself from or have some boundaries on. And the other thing is even just TV in general, right? So, ladies may have reality TV and dating shows and Real Housewives, whatever, what's the other thing that the ladies love? Like true crime. I know y'all love some true crime. Guys, we got sports, That's our drama. And that's something that even for me, ever since I was a boy, like I've always just been into sports and have followed it, football, basketball mainly. And right now it's a pretty entertaining time to be watching sports, middle of the football season, basketball just started, the World Series is on. And it's just so much of that going on. And it's very easy for me to get pulled into wanting to, watch it live or see what's happening if I haven't planned to do something else. So with that being said, I've just realized that those things have taken up a little bit more of my time and my mental energy than I would like. And I've had to pause for a bit. I've had to just realize like, okay, let me be aware of this and let me take a step back. Like I think I was even watching sports or something this past weekend, and I was like, I don't like the fact that I'm sitting here doing this right now. Like even if I multitask, it just is like, why do I need this on? What do I feel like I'm missing? And that's a big thing for me is like FOMO. So yeah, I've just assessed where my time and my energy has gone and realized that social media and, my TV has probably gotten a little bit more of my time than I would prefer at the moment. And yeah, I've wanted to redirect that energy, and I've wanted to replace that consumption with things that I would want to consume and things that I'm wanting to learn more about. And the way that I've gone about that is, one, I've kind of taken a step back and just assessed like, okay, when things have worked for me in the past, what are those things, what are those habits that I'm doing pretty consistently that allow me to feel like I'm in good flow? And even for me to even for me to feel more comfortable and more confident doing a podcast and speaking to you guys. And those things were first, like, I need to be consuming information that I think would be valuable and that I can get in the habit of regurgitating so that it's not just, me having trouble to figure out what to talk about, And the first way that comes for me is through reading. Like, to be honest with y'all, I haven't had a consistent reading habit in quite some time. So what happened is I set a goal to read 12 books this year. And I hit that goal like halfway through the year, right? And this is just, there's something to be said about setting really lofty goals, because especially with certain areas of your life. Because once I hit that goal, I was like, oh wow, like I read 12 books already. That's crazy. I feel really accomplished. And I just never felt like a real push or pull to continue reading after that. And then there were other distractions that came up in the evenings that made it easier for me to, choose scrolling or choose watching something else instead of reading. And yeah, what I've realized is that I just am a lot sharper when I'm reading consistently. My words flow a lot better, and I feel like I have more to talk about when I am reading something consistently. So I've decided to pick up my reading habit and, set a set time, in my evening where I'm just dedicating that to reading and nothing else. So the book that I've started to read, I believe it's called The Power of Now. I can't remember the author's name or whatever, but I'm pretty sure that's the only book called that. So anyway, I've started reading that recently. I've gotten different recommendations about that book, and yeah, so far so good. It's a bit more abstract, a lot more, if you read it for yourself, you would find that out. But yeah, it's not like maybe step-by-step directional at the moment. I've only gotten maybe like a chapter or two in so far. But it's been good because I think it's allowed me to, be curious and have something that I'm looking forward to finishing. But also, again, just to consume and read and continue to sharpen that skill of, just refining like my mindset and, even my ability to speak in general. The other thing that I've decided to do is focus on what I'm listening to. And this comes in many different forms, but for me personally, I have found that I started to fall into the habit of like giving up on things when I don't feel like doing them, like even little things, right? I went through a phase this year where I was taking a cold shower every day, and I just stopped because I was like, well, why do I need to take a cold shower? Like, what am I doing this for? And it just kind of dwindled away. And what happened is things like that I would constantly have in my routine, they started to have an impact on my mindset and how I approached work and fitness and just things in general. And I was like, oh, okay, that's why I had the cold showers in my routine, is because I'm training myself to do something that I don't feel like doing. And I need to continue to do those things so that I can be effective in the things that really matter and that really move the needle forward. So the cold showers is a part of that. But the real root of, or maybe even like the start of that thinking came from when I read this book, and actually not reading, but listening to the audio book. It's called Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins. I mean, this book is just, it's one of those books where you get a lot of perspective just hearing his story and his background, which is really, I mean, just messed up in so many different ways. And I'm not going to spill any of that because I feel like I would ruin it. But yeah, I've just started to listen to that audiobook again, because what I got from it the first time that I read, or the first time that I listened to it again, is that like, yo, your situation, first and foremost, is not that bad. But second of all, like, what are some ways that you can start doing and embracing the hard things that you don't feel like doing, and setting up systems so that you can hold yourself accountable to it or have someone else hold you accountable to it. So I picked up that audiobook again just to, just reinforce that message and drive that home a lot more, because I've definitely felt like that willpower has started to dwindle and slip away. Not entirely, but just, the little things that I'm like, oh, like I find myself giving up on things when I can't figure something out way too quick. Whereas before, I've had periods where I'm like, yo, I'm gonna figure this out. And I did. And I managed to do the things that even I didn't feel like doing. So yeah, highly recommend that book if you wanna read it or if you wanna listen to the audiobook. The audiobook does have like his like podcast in between. So he kind of goes through every chapter and talks about like some other information that wasn't necessarily in the book itself and gives some more context. So highly recommend that if you haven't read it or listened to it yet. The other thing that I've also picked up a habit of is I've been on top of reading the Bible every day. I have a Bible plan on my phone. It's with the YouVersion Bible app. A lot of people may have downloaded it or may have it on their phone. So if you haven't downloaded it, definitely recommend that for yourself. But they have different reading plans on there and different devotionals that you can go through. And it'll just give you a guided, reading of the Bible and some more context to the chapters and the readings. And some could be like 5-day reading plans. Some could be, over 300. And I decided to do one by the Bible Project. And it's a reading plan that takes you through the entirety of the Bible. And each one of the days that you're reading, it'll either just have the scripture that you're reading for that day, and it could be all of like, 2 to maybe even 5 chapters, depending on the length. And they do a pretty good job of like managing that, so it's not taking up too much time. But they also have some days where it includes a devotional, where it's a YouTube video. And the Bible Project is really good at having different animations and stuff that just make it a lot easier to understand, and honestly easier for me to hold my attention. Still got that like little ADHD, but yeah, I've been reading that, and I think I only have like 50 something days left before I'm finished, and should be finished before the end of the year. But I've also found myself reading through that and kind of like checking a box while I'm doing it. And the Bible takes a lot to digest, and it takes a lot to really like make sure that you're getting what you need from it, but also understanding like the context in what's being shared and why it was shared in that particular way. So I have this Bible, just a thick old Bible, and it was gifted to me by a friend maybe like 5 or 6 years ago when I first came to my faith. And it's like a guided reading of the Bible, and it has all these different like footnotes and introductions to each one of the books that you're about to read. And I decided to pick that up because I feel like reading the physical book is also very helpful. And I've been craving that sort of like knowledge of some additional context. Like, yes, reading the Bible is good, and I've definitely learned a lot just from the act of reading it, but to also understand some more of the context and who was writing which book and why it was written. I think it's just been really helpful, and it's been turning a bit more gears in my mind about the Word of God. So I started doing that, and I started with Proverbs just because I always remember that book of the Bible being just full of wisdom and a lot of guidance. And I just think that it's something that I've been a little bit, more curious about and wanting to gain some more wisdom in this season of my life too. So yeah, just, wanted to share some inputs that I'm starting to adjust and how I've gone about, incorporating them. So like I said, the audio book with David Goggins, the book that I'm reading, The Power of Now, and I only read that for like 30 minutes a day. And then just reading one proverb a day, and there's 31 of them. So, it should take about a month to go through if I go at that pace of reading one a day. So just wanting to adjust my inputs and change what I'm consuming, which I think a lot of people could use just in general. I think it feels like it's so easy to go on autopilot these days, where you're doing things just because you're just hoping for some sort of stimulation and something to take your mind off of whatever else that you possibly be thinking about. And that could serve its purpose, as like a mental break for the day. But it could also be very tempting to have that consume a lot more of your day than you start to realize. And then you start just dwindling off into autopilot land. And I don't recommend that for anybody. The other thing that I think has been something that I find necessary in this season is some form of accountability. I think I've mentioned this in previous podcasts, like, being in isolation and being by myself can allow me to just start to drift off, especially mentally. And I think most people can resonate with that too. And that's been helpful, especially here in Austin with the community I've built. I've found a lot of different ways to, just get out of the apartment and not be working from home all day. But I've also realized that whenever I have, partnered up with my little brother and we've gone through a dedicated period of time where we're holding each other accountable to specific tasks that we want to complete each day and habits, that just, like 10x's my results. And also it really like doesn't allow for any slip ups because that you're checking in with someone. We have like a Google sheet that we fill out where we mark all the habits that we're completing for each day. And that's the thing that I'm gonna, recommend to anybody who's looking to actually make a change is if you find somebody that you could actually, hold you accountable and you can hold them accountable and have like real accountability where it's not like, oh yeah, I slipped up and like, no, like, all right, well, we're getting back on it tomorrow, right? Like this is not something that we're just gonna allow each other to drift off on. If you can find that, which can be hard, but if you can find that, I really feel like that is just a true blessing in you taking, a strong step in the direction that you want to and actually achieving some sort of goal in mind. So yeah, me and my brother decided to do that, and it's not anything like fancy or official. we're just like, yo, like, let's start holding each other accountable to the things we want to do right now, you know? And if those things adjust, right? Like if we want to add more things to that, then sure. But right now we both kind of feel like we're in a season where it could be helpful. And for me personally, I think about Thanksgiving and I think about, you know, Christmas time and the holidays. And I don't know about you, but I often feel pretty guilty before I travel. And maybe it's just more of like an entrepreneur thing where because I'm the only one, you know, responsible for my business, I just always feel like if I'm leaving it, it's like I'm neglecting my child. And it's just good to build like some good momentum going into those, you know, times of the holidays. Because if you're seeing family and you have the ability to, you know, like just have a lot more progress made beforehand, then for me, what I've found is I just don't feel as guilty. And I feel like, okay, I've done all I needed to do beforehand. And, you know, I feel good about seeing family and not like going through this negative thought cycle of, see, you should have never left to see your family. You need to be home and working, which is just crazy. So it just feels like a really good time to start incorporating that into my life as well too. Having that accountability partner and holding each other to that with a tracker and all that sort of stuff. And I'm very blessed to have a brother who I can actually do this with. So that's pretty cool. You know, everybody who may not have that person, maybe it's, you know, a friend, or maybe it's a family member, or maybe you got to go out and start searching for that community. But I really recommend having someone that you can start to hold yourself accountable to in some way, you know, to something. Even if you just want to stop drinking or smoking or whatever, you know, just have some sort of way to, you know, connect with someone who's going to help you with that. Yeah, I think that would be huge if you haven't tried that yet. So those are my takeaways. That's what's been happening for me recently, and some things that I'm changing personally to help me out. And if you haven't tried that for yourself, I really recommend it. So like first and foremost, just pause, like start to remove stuff. Like I think we all need like time to pause for a second. And then the other thing is obviously like assessing and deciding like, okay, what are the things that are helping me? What are the things that aren't? And then, you know, committing yourself to the things that you want to do, and then finding someone to hold you accountable to those things. I think those are really huge steps that can really make a huge change in your life. So anyone who's done 75 hard or any sort of like commitment like that, most people attest to how much greater their lives got after that period of time. So I just highly recommend it for yourself if you haven't done that yet. And that's what's been working for me. I've gone through this 2 or 3 times where I've had like these like accountability projects, and each time my life just is so much better during and after. So those are my life updates. That's what's been happening with me. I think this is probably going to be a shorter episode, but that's all right. I'm so thankful that the sun is coming in consistently because the lighting looks okay for right now. But I'm just going to keep doing these episodes here in my kitchen until I move out of this place, and see how this goes from there. But feel free to comment. Please subscribe if you haven't already. I think we're almost we might be 10 subscribers away from reaching 100, which, you know, it's, in my head, I'm like 100 subscribers. But if I had like a room full of 100 people, that's a pretty big room, you know, just some perspective. I just appreciate everybody who's tuned in and who has subscribed. And if you want to, you know, continue to help the page grow and the podcast grow, feel free to share this with a friend. And please, you know, let me know your thoughts if you, you know, feel so obliged to comment. But other than that, enjoy the rest of your day. I hope you have a blessed one. And I hope you've been encouraged in some way, shape, or form. All right. That's it for me. Take it easy.